Hello, everybody, and welcome to Called Up the Prospects podcast. I am Chris Peters from FloHockey, joined as always by Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects, and it is the most wonderful time of the year. Cam, how excited are you? It is World Junior. We're almost on the week. We've got 2 shows left before this whole thing goes. I mean, can we get any more excited right now?
This is it. I mean, had the family gathered to watch a pre-tournament game there last night. We got cuts this morning. We're talking about NHLers coming back. This is it. And then they're all off to Minnesota here in a heartbeat. It's going to be good. And we'll be following right behind them here too. So no, I'm very excited.
Yeah, so we are recording the day after Canada's first pre-tournament game against Sweden. It's a 2-1 win. Both goals scored by Brady Martin. Canada does make 3 cuts this day, the day that we record. Thankfully, they did it before we recorded, so we can have a little bit of a reaction to it. We will get to that in a little bit. But, there's just so much to get to. We're going to talk all World Juniors today. And just to kind of give you a little bit of housekeeping here, we're going to do this episode today. And then you will also get another episode right before the tournament where we'll do things like predictions and other things like that. And we'll have some more information on our next show about how you can see Called Up at the World Juniors. We are going to be at the World Juniors, and we're going to do this little thing there. And I will provide details once I provide them to Cam as well, and also to the rest of you. Yeah, kind of important, but we will get to that. We're getting all those details are getting ironed out here, and so we'll have that next week. But wanted to let you guys know that this episode right here is presented by World Juniors and Minnesota Sports and Events. The World Juniors hits Minnesota this December. 10 nations, one dream, elite hockey. You cannot miss. WorldJuniorsMN26.com. Get your tickets now. You can check the QR code on your screen or go to WorldJuniorsMN26.com. Get those tickets now. And Cam, I wanted to ask you, one of the great things about the World Juniors is that we get to see some incredible performances, individual things, stuff that you almost can't believe. What springs to mind of an in-person World Juniors where you saw something you're just like, what?
How about Ryan Leonard blowing the kiss to the Swedish bench and faithful there as they took home gold in Gothenburg a couple of years ago? That was pretty. That one burned into my memory, man. That the swagger, the confidence as an 18-year-old to boot. That was the year that him and Will Smith and Gabe Perreault were that dynamic third line for the Americans, I believe, playing 12, 13 minutes a night. And to do that, and to have the gumption, throwing his body around, that one, that was a lot of fun that year too, for sure, in Sweden. But that moment stood out to me.
Yeah, that one is outstanding. I think it's one of the and really he wears the C the next year, and I was like, did he earn it? Like when he blew that kiss, the confidence. I don't know, but David Carl certainly didn't mind it. I'll tell you that much about that. He wasn't upset about it. I've got an obscure one, and you and I were both at this game. This was in Victoria, BC, and this is at the Vancouver World Juniors, and one of the craziest moments was USA's down by 3 to Sweden in the third period. And here comes Lakeville, Minnesota's Ryan Poehling, scores a hat trick to tie the game. And then USA ends up losing in overtime. But to see that, those are the kinds of moments where somebody stands up. You think about like Kent Johnson scoring a Michigan goal. Casey Middlestat scored one of the greatest goals I ever saw at the World Juniors against Slovakia when Team USA needed a goal. We talked about last week, Mason McTavish's goal line save. Anything Jordan Eberle ever did at the World Juniors. Like all of these different things. There's so many great moments. So you guys have a great opportunity to go see this event in St. Paul, in Minneapolis. Get to a game. There is always something that happens. So if you're nearby, come on down, and you might even see your called up hosts there and some other cool stuff that's going to be going on. We'll have much more in our next episode to talk about with what's coming up from FloHockey. But Cam, we've got some news today. And so let's get to it because this is really fresh. So Canada made 3 cuts today, but one thing that I think was very important to note about Canada, they did not say that this is their final roster. They never said that once. There's like, we got it. This is our team. So Cam, here are the cuts. Jake O'Brien, Merrick Vanacker, Jackson Smith, 2 forwards and defensemen. We also are thinking, hey, maybe there's some NHL names that we should be keeping an eye on for potential additions here. But what did you think when you saw Jake O'Brien, Merrick Vanacker, Jackson Smith, and take them whatever way you want to? But what did you think when you saw those were the names that were not going to be part of this team?
I mean, Vanacker coming in late to camp, just in case Michael Misa wasn't good to go, and then Misa was officially loaned yesterday. They gave him a crack in that game last night, and he was always going to have an uphill battle. That was going to be a tough spot for him to really elevate and get on this roster. Jackson Smith, I think, was clearly the odd man out even coming into camp, because I think Team Canada would like to have 4 lefties and 4 righties, with Carson Carroll's being ahead of him in the depth chart. And I don't think last night's performance by Smith changed anyone's mind there. Carl's was great. Smith was he was fighting it a little bit. I think that's fair to say. We said this early too, that it was going to be kind of Verhoff or Jackson Smith getting sent home. Now we've talked a lot about Jake O'Brien. And I believe it was last week where I was thumping the table, being like, he better be on this team. And then as we were talking about it more and more, being like, gosh, are we talking ourselves out of him being on this team? And I think that you brought up an excellent point there, is that with Michael Misa coming back, with all the skill they have up front, especially down the middle, and with this being a Dale Hunter coached team, that Jake O'Brien be on the bubble, which is what we'd been hearing as well, made a lot of sense. And again, last night, he didn't do himself any favors. He's got supremely gifted vision and, a great touch, but he is a little more on the perimeter, a little bit softer. And so if he's not going to be one of your top 2 centers, where does he fit in the lineup? And then you have to look, is he our 13th guy? Is he that guy that we're having as a safety net? Or are we going to use a Caleb Desnoyers or a Braden Coots or a Cole Reshney in that spot? And obviously they decided to go with the more recent draft guys.
Yeah, and I would say, of the guys that you just mentioned, certainly O'Brien is the biggest surprise, top 10 draft pick, but you and I were talking about, I always thought he was kind of on the periphery, a little bit more on the bubble because of Michael Misa's inclusion. And it was notable in that pre-tournament game, Michael Hage gets a look at center, a guy that we have penciled in on the wing for a long time. And he probably still will be, with Michael Misa coming back. But they say, hey, not giving O'Brien that look, that was a little telling to me as well, where, it's like, okay. And it's just like, again, it's hard to find fit at that point. There's a lot of guys, there's a lot of versions of the same player that do a few things here differently, like we talked about last week. And that's where it takes, if Jake O'Brien is not going to be one of your top 2 centers, he's not your 4th line center. Maybe he's your 13th, but at that point, he's not playing a lot. If he's not on your power play, I'd rather have a 13th that has an option to be on the power play too. So it's tough. And here's the thing. Those O'Brien, leading scorer in the OHL, Vanacker, the leading goal scorer in the OHL, neither of them on this roster. And I think it speaks to the depth. And again, I think it's really important to know, just because those players, like, we talked about JP Hurlburt not making Team USA. I mean, there are a lot of reasons for that, but he's still, even if there wasn't this baggage with it, he probably wouldn't have made the team. I think there's still a lot of that out there. And, you look at like Sam O'Reilly is going to be able to play a number of different roles. Caleb Desnoyers, a number of different roles. I think Jake O'Brien, it's one role. And if you fail at that role, you don't help in other ways, whereas those other guys do.
I
and
agree.
if you're
Same
a
with
Seattle
like Braden
Kraken,
Coots, right? I was
yes,
going to say
exactly.
with Braden Coots, right? Like, and I was reading off of the tea leaves there last night too. There he was on the top power play unit, right?
Correct.
There he was on the first PK unit. He was getting looks, in the top 6, but on the wing, but they're testing him in situations, being like, where can we fit this guy in the lineup that would make sense if he's going to be on the roster, or if he's going to be our 13th guy, versus O'Brien's spot there down on the 4th line. That's not ideal for him coming into the night.
Yeah, you can definitely read the tea leaves once you see those lineups of those teams of like, and really the other thing that I found interesting was that they had Cole Reshney on a line with Coots and Carter Bear. And I have to be honest, as I looked at that, I was like, that doesn't look like a real line. Like, it doesn't look like it, like that. It wasn't like, it could be like, because they're all, but I was just like, if you would have given me like 100 guesses of what the line combinations would be, I think it would have been 101 that I got to the Reshney Coots
Right.
Bear line. But like, it's weird without when you take away Misa, when you take away Ginla, when you take away Baudouin and others and Martone, you're
Martone.
like, okay, where exactly does all this fit? So we still haven't gotten a look at what Canada's going to look like. They have another pre-tournament game against Sweden. They have one more in Mankato, Minnesota, I think against Denmark.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you've got a couple of opportunities here. And yeah, so Cam, I'm intrigued though. Like I'm intrigued because I want to throw it back to you. I was able to watch a good chunk of the game. I wasn't able to watch the entire game last night. Because I was foolishly trying to coach hockey while not feeling the best, if you can't tell everybody, because of my voice is lower and I'm fighting it today. But you got a chance to watch the game. What were maybe some of your key core takeaways from that? And then I want to get to the potential options that still are out there for Canada for this team that haven't been added to camp yet. But just what you saw from that and where you think this is going.
Yeah, so I think a lot of things were reinforced in that game. I think that we saw, Carter George was excellent, and him getting the start in that first game, it's probably a bit of a tell that he's going to get start in opening night there too in Minnesota, which we predicted. I thought Carson, like I mentioned, Carson Karls was very good, and they put him as that seventh D on the roster card too, which is very likely where he's going to be
Yes.
to start the tournament, right? Where Keaton Verhoff, he got to play on the second pair with Cash with Aitchison, and then Smith was playing on the third pair, so they're getting more regular minutes. But Karls and Verhoff were out there together a few times too. Verhoff, I thought he had some glaring mistakes, some big mistakes that really stood out. That one turnover late in 5 minutes left in the game, and it led to a long series against. But he also made an excellent, one of the best passes of the night that wasn't named Gavin McKenna dishing it to Spring Greentree. I liked his sturdiness in the net. He's so raw. The potential is just massive, but I think he makes this roster, and I think he's watching for the most part. And again, these are all things that we kind of looked at going in. I liked Caleb Desnoyers as the third line center. He'd been out with injury. I like that line too. Him with Greentree and who was on that other side now? I'm spacing out. Should have wrote it down in the notes. But anyways, I like that third line.
Yeah.
You'll pull it up for me while I'm talking here.
I'm on it.
Yes,
and
then
I'm
finally,
blanking too. Yeah. So with Luchenko. So
there you go.
yeah.
And I liked, people were, I said, I tweeted it last night that it looked like Gavin McKenna was going to do some damage this year. And I kind of felt like that. And we've said it a few times that I thought people were going to maybe eat their crow a bit at this tournament. Now, he wasn't Connor Bedard, who kind of has spoiled it for a lot of these young players, these draft eligibles, where he was so dominant on every shift. And every time he touched the puck, it was like, oh boy, you get back in your seat. But, I thought he was better than we've seen a lot of nights at Penn State. And the vision, right? His ability to get the puck into space for people, like that one dish to Brady Martin, right? For that one timer was gorgeous, right? The two primaries, he is such a facilitator. And now he's getting to play with players that are, at his same level, where he hasn't had that at PSU so much. Is that I really do. He might not end up being like the most electric player at the tournament this year, but I think he's going to get his cookies. He's going to get a lot of points, and he's going to be the main facilitator offensively for Canada, even when Michael Meese is there, even when Porter Martone's there. I do think he's going to be that guy that's just setting the table.
I think that's true. Yeah. I mean, and you know what I think is important is that the way that they have these lines drawn up is that, even in the pre-tournament game, there's a driver for pretty much every line. There's somebody that can carry the puck an awful lot on every single line. And in many cases, there's multiple players that can do it. And then when you have, and that I think does play into a Gavin McKenna, where it's like, I can't just focus on him. I got so many other things I got to be aware of, but he's going to have the puck an awful lot. And, seeing that, the passes that he made, I mean, that one timer from Martin from distance was, I mean, that was a pretty sick
nasty.
overall play. And then, just putting it into an area for Brady Martin, and get credit to Brady Martin for playing up the lineup and thriving in that environment. And you mentioned Carter George.
Good.
And and I think
Brady looked good.
A lot of them did. And it was a 2-1 final. And that's not a bad result for a first tilt, with each other, and trying to see where that, we didn't have the U Sports games that they usually have as kind of a tune up for that. So So they were able to kind of really get into more of a rhythm. How about the odd, by the way? Shout out to Kitchener for just packing the joint and making it
Yeah,
feel like a major, major event for a game that doesn't count. But I mean, you get the Maple Leaf out there, the odd's going to be rocking for that one, and they'll be in London for their basically their send off game, also against Sweden. But here's where
great
I want to
points.
go next, Cam, because now that we've seen kind of what's out there, and obviously a number of players didn't dress,
Yeah.
the, you know, we're still thinking that there's a chance Canada's getting one of, maybe both of Sam Dickinson and potentially Berkeley Catton. What do you think, man? Is it possible? What are we looking at here?
Kevin Garnett, anything is possible. I think that's true. I think that it is possible. I know, San Jose came out and said that they're still talking about it. Orsovsky was saying, that we're again reading between the lines with what Warsofsky was talking about is that they're basically trying to break the bad habits that Sam Dickinson had got while playing 55 minutes a night in the OHL and pacing himself and being that offensive stud that he could be, where a lot of those things they're junior habits and they're not going to work in the NHL. And as far as some of these young guys in the NHL on the blue line, like, yeah, he's not playing a ton, but his defensive game, from what I've been seeing him and from what the analytics are showing, like, he's doing pretty well. He's coming along. He's finding his way in a depth role. But, the analytics say that he's doing better than like a Z Bouillon or what Zane Parekh was doing, and these guys that are, the same age as him, same draft class. So I just wonder if San Jose is like, we got a good thing going here. We're working on his habits. It's trending in the right direction. Do we really want to send him down for 2 weeks and have him go and play 28, 29 minutes a night and some of those habits come back? Even, he's been to the event before. It wasn't a successful venture, but he's been there before. So I think that that's what they're weighing right now. And I think it's a guess, but I would say that it's more unlikely he goes than likely. And then I think with Catton, I think is he healthy? Is he going to be fully healthy and ready to go? And then the Kraken will be like, all right, let's go. Let's send him. Let's get him some minutes. This is kind of like a nice little conditioning stint, if you will, coming
Yeah,
back from injury. So I think that maybe there's a better chance they get Catton. I don't know. We'll see.
right. Which really makes an interesting dynamic for their forward group, and then it makes for some
Yeah.
interesting decisions throughout their lineup of how do you shift things around based on where you're going. And I think the thing with Dickinson too, it almost feels like if he was going to go, why not have already sent him to get him into that, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. But Canada, I think Hockey Canada is they're going to wait till they go. And people, you don't have to name, just because you name your final roster ahead of the tournament. It's not locked in until you have 25 players on your list, or 22 skaters, 3
On the
goalies on your
25th,
list that you submit. Yeah, on the 25th. And you don't
you
even
got
have to
time.
submit your full roster. You can leave openings on that to give yourself some flexibility. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what Hockey Canada does and how long they're willing to wait. But I think, if these guys don't get in to have maybe that last pre-tournament game, then maybe
Mm-hmm.
the ship has sailed. But I think there's still time left on the clock. And I think if you're, the bubble, whoever is left on the bubble for Team Canada, then all of a sudden you're like, I wonder what's going to go. And that's a tough pill to swallow. But yeah, but there's a lot left to get to there. But Team Canada,
Let,
obviously,
let me ask you
dude.
this.
Yeah, go
Can I
ahead,
ask you
Cam.
this?
Yeah,
Okay, I want to ask you this because
absolutely.
I think we agree in this that if Dickey comes, it's Keaton Verhoff who's out the door, right? Like, I don't think we're going to see Ethan McKenzie, who is a dog out there. He's a hell of a story. We're going to talk about
Yeah.
him in a little bit. And I think Carl's is at this moment the better option. So it's Verhoff on the blue line if Dickinson. But who do you think? Who do you think's on the bubble right now if Catton comes down?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're making a decision, but well, yeah, for Catton, I mean, I'd say that's really tough. That's really tough
Mm-hmm.
because there's, again, it comes back to who's the same guy. Like, is it Reshny? I mean, I don't
Right.
know.
That's what I'm
Like
thinking.
that.
That's what I'm thinking. Maybe
Yeah, it
too.
could be
Maybe Reshny.
Reshny.
Right.
Like, because
Could be
as I
Bear.
mentioned that Reshny Bear Coots line, I was like, that just doesn't look like it's. I don't know
Yeah.
what it is about it, but it just doesn't feel like a realistic line to me. And then you're kind of looking around and you're saying, okay, well, they had Sam O'Reilly playing with the last 2 cuts, but he's a London Knight. There's no way they're
Yeah.
getting rid of him. And
He's on there.
Caleb Desnoyers had a really good showing, and he's the only QMJHL player on the roster right now. Luchenko's a returnee. Coots, I think they have a spot for him. In an elevated role, and penalty killing is one of the things that is going to be there. So, yeah, I mean, I think it probably ends up coming down to Reshny, which would be a shame too, because I think that like they loved how he played in the summer, and I think he looks pretty good. But yeah, it's a tough one there. But I would say probably Reshny, and I agree with you. I think if it's going to go down, in terms of Keaton Verhoff, it's just at that point, it's like, do we care about handedness? Do we care about having right shot defensemen? That and
Yeah.
but the other thing too that I wonder, if you bring in Dickinson, where does that leave? What kind of role is
Cameron
there
Reed.
for Aitchison or Cameron Reed to play? Those
Yeah.
are the things. And then you're like, because then if you cut Verhoff, then you're left with Parekh and let's see what you've got three. You do have three right
Danford.
shot guys already. So
Yeah.
Danford,
Yeah.
Brunicki, you're in fine shape. But yeah, I just wonder if that pushes one of those guys further down the lineup and then changes the role enough to where it's like, does that even make sense for them to have that role? I would personally rather have both of them. I love Verhoff. I would love to see him in the tournament, but odds are we're not going to see him play much anyway. So
Yeah.
I think
Exactly.
that's where it goes, and then you go from there. But yeah, lots more to go as we get through this. But yeah, but I want to shift gears a little bit, and we'll talk about Canada continuing here in this next segment. But I wanted, Cam, you wrote a piece about like the guys, the most exciting players to watch, and there's a lot this year at the World Juniors. And you wrote a great piece over at Elite Prospects, kind of detailing who are the exciting guys that you're excited to see. There are obviously some of the obvious ones, the top players, the guys that were picked very high, the guys that are going to be picked very high. But I mean, I think that's really there's a lot of storylines to be following in this tournament, and it starts with these elite players. So let's go ahead and just kind of go down the list a little bit and just talk about some of the guys that you're most excited to see in this World Junior setting where everything is elevated, the attention is greater, and everything else.
Yeah, so that was a fun one. I'm going to be on the NHL Network for their pre-tournament show, and they asked me to give them a whole list of players that they thought, who do you think is going to be exciting, who's worth talking about. And so as I was doing that, I was like, oh, this looks like an article too. So obviously at the top, Gavin McKenna. Not only is he, arguably the most talented player who will be there, but he also has so much to prove, and we can talk about that, in a minute here too. But I'm very excited to see how he's going to mesh with these top players, because last year, as a 16, just recently turned 17-year-old, he just wasn't afforded the opportunities right out the gate or the talent. And this year there's going to be no excuses, right? He's going to have great players around him at all kind of points there. And then, we talk about Michael Misa, Porter Martone, all these top rated guys that I think are just set up to succeed. Martone, right? He was a bit piece last year. Now he's going to play a massive role for this team. Misa should have been there last year, but now he's going to play a massive role in this team. Cole Hudson broke the point record for American D last year. What's he going to do for an encore? He's already got a gold medal. He's got that swagger, that confidence too, right? Like, he's not afraid to muck it up. I think, he's going to be very exciting. We talked about Kayshawn here. I think he has a big role on this team because of his physicality. He's a character. He's like, he's a kind of a culture carrier in the room, energy. You don't get out of too many games without Cash doing something that's pretty exciting. I'm also really looking forward to seeing Anton Frundell again. Now, he wasn't great last night. He did have a primary there on Vigo Bjork's goal. But overall, you want to see that big man doing some big things there. And I think that he's going to fall into that list of guys who have a lot to prove too.
Yeah, man. Yeah, once we get to that, I mean, it does feel like there's players that are going to come into this tournament with a bit of a chip on their shoulder. And, what's going to be interesting is Finland as well. And you had Petteri Rimponen on there, Mr. Showtime, as he is known. He was one of the big stories of last year's tournament. He's back. Meanwhile, Finland, will not have Konsta Helenius. He has not been released.
Is it official?
Well, he's not on their camp roster, and I don't think he's going to be.
Mm.
in the camp. So until it's not official until they register, but it
Yeah.
sounds pretty much like we will not see Consta Helenius at the World Juniors, which is a
Dang,
hit,
that's a big
a
hit.
major one
Huge.
for Finland.
Huge.
And I think it does, you know, I know we've had some comments on our YouTube that we don't give enough respect to the Finns, and I think like thing is that we know Finland will find a way to be far more competitive than what it looks like they should be on paper. But you take away a
Always.
big bopper like that, it makes it really difficult. But that puts the pressure on Mr. Showtime, Petteri Rimpinen, who
Mhm.
I mean, he was sensational in last year's World Junior Championship. It got him drafted. And then he's
Yeah.
also continued that. He played really well in Liga last year. He's playing well now. He's playing, he's playing well enough. And you've got him in a situation where, hey, if you're not on your game, we're going to have a really hard time because we've lost one of
Yeah.
our primary offensive assets where, you are going to have to deliver. But when you have a name like Mr. Showtime, how can you not be excited about Mr. Showtime? I mean, like,
Right?
I love him. I call him the Rimp Dog too, just because he doesn't know that, but I
He will
talking to him
soon
a
enough.
lot. He's such a competitor. Like this year, his numbers are down. But I'm not really that concerned about it. We saw him play, at his best with Finland's jersey on, 933 save percentage last year. The an all-star last year, best goalie last year. And this is a guy that, with that level of experience, as we saw, how much that can matter for a player like we saw with Trey Augustine, like we've seen with, Jesper Wallstedt, others over the years. It matters. A couple of exciting guys. One guy I want to talk about, and for me, that I'm excited to see in this particular setting because what I've seen this year, we talked about him on last week's show, excuse me, is Albert Smits. And
Mhm.
Cam, I want to set the over under. How many minutes do you think he is going to play for Latvia on a per game basis? And why is it all of them?
Yeah. I was about to say, am I allowed to just say all of them?
All the
It's gonna be
minutes,
funny.
yes.
Right? There was that story. We should. I don't know. I don't think we asked Chris this when we had Pronger on the show, but that story when he was in junior and he would play 40 a night.
Yeah,
He would play 40 minutes a
yeah.
night, and it was just like,
Half the
and like
game
sometimes he wouldn't
or
get
more.
off in the third period, right? Like just insane stuff. So I wouldn't be shocked if Smits was playing, maybe not that much, but like it's going to be in the 30s probably on many nights if they're in the game. If they want to keep him, if they're out of the game, maybe they don't run him into the dirt. But as far as what he's doing right now in the Liga, right, as a draft eligible, he's like the only non-Finn to do this as a draft eligible defenseman. He's clicking at just below a half point a game, you know,
Yeah.
on an all-time record. He's just behind a few, like really, there's not too many guys ahead of him in the last 30 years who have put up better numbers so far, and he still has half his season to go. So he's doing some special stuff, and I think he's going to open a lot of people's eyes at this event that haven't had an opportunity to really see him. We saw him at the U18s there last year, and he was fine, but he was an underager, and we weren't expecting this kind of pop. And so now I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can bring on this level. And I think Latvia, right? Like, I'm sorry, Finland, like they feel like some of the Finns are feeling like we're not giving enough love. We give Latvia some love because, man, those guys last year were a tough
Yeah.
out. And I imagine they're going to
Yeah.
bring that same kind of dogged attitude to the rink this year, and then having that blue chipper on the blue line, even though he's a draft eligible, an 18-year-old draft eligible, I do believe, is that, it's gonna really improve their watchability and bring that dynamicism from the back end.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, I think that we're talking about a young guy here that, like you go back in the years, David Reinbacher played a pretty big role, but I think Latvia, they're going to get into the quarterfinals. Like I would, all they really have to do is beat Denmark. I think they'll do that. I think they have a chance to put a scare into some of the other teams in their group. They're in the same group with the United States, in Group B. And so I think that's, or sorry, they're in the group with Canada in Group B.
I was about to say
USA
they're
is
gonna
Group
meet.
A.
They're gonna meet
Yeah, my bad.
Sweden in the quarters.
But so it's tough. Like Finland, but like, could they beat Finland? Could they beat Czechs? Could they beat Canada last year? I don't think they'll beat
Right?
Canada this year.
Yeah.
But like that's the thing is like they are going to be missing some pieces. But now you've got Albert Smits at a year older, a guy that's playing over 20 minutes a game in the league. The guy that and I do think in those games, especially in those games against like the Czechs and the Finns, when they're in it, he's probably playing 27, 28 minutes at least. And that's such a great place to be. And what is that going to do for his draft stock if he's like dragging Latvia into the fight? It's going way up. Yes, exactly. It's going way, way, way up. But yeah. So keep an eye. So that's one. Another guy, and like I think USA belongs. It's James Higgins and Cole Hudson. Those are the guys that are really going to be rallied around. But if you're going off of who's playing the best right now, Max Plant is that guy. And Max Plant has been remarkable throughout the season. One of the top, the top scorer in college hockey. I think Minnesota Duluth has gone beyond that. But the reason that I'm really intrigued is, I think that they might have him at center. We've talked about USA's need for center, and that they don't have like a natural center, like because in a lot of his other settings, he's been a wing. He's been, you could kind of put him in a lot of different places. I think at the NHL level, more likely a wing, but he's this highly intelligent individual. And I think that they're going to have him down the middle. And that's been a position that they need. And 30 points in 20 games at Minnesota Duluth this year, wearing a letter as a sophomore. He had 28 points all of last season, Cam. So he's already over, and he only played 23 games. He was injured for a part of the season. But he had 3 points in last year's World Junior Championship. What's to say he's not going to be one of the top scorers for USA this year with how he's been playing? That's a guy that I just think, the hockey intelligence that Max Plant possesses, the vision, the creativity, but also this doggedness of competitiveness. I think he's going to be a big factor for this American team, and is going to be a guy that you're going to want to keep a very close eye on, because I think he's going to do some things.
Yeah, I like that. I like that
so,
take. I think Detroit is excited to have him and his progression, right? Chris Draper and company there. We've talked about like, is this James Hagen's team up front? This might be Max Plant's team up front.
Like
they might turn into that.
You said it last week, and I thought, yeah, why not? I mean, like, and Bob Motzko is going to lean on him. He's going to put him in situations to succeed. I mean, like, the thing is you can have him on your power play. He can PK for you. He can do everything. So he's going to play a pretty significant amount of minutes. But the one guy that I also wanted to point out, and this actually I was thinking about this more after last night. I don't know how you felt about him watching, like I said, I didn't watch the entire game last night, but what I did watch last night, I think Leo Salin Wallenius is going to play a lot of minutes for Sweden. And he's not an exciting player. Like, he's not going to get you out of your seat. But if he's at the top of his game, like, that's a really valuable player for Sweden that can really help them. And I'm excited to see who are the guys that aren't the Frundells and the Eklunds and the Stenbergs that are going to step up, because that's what Sweden's going to need. Is it a Jack Berglund? Is it a Leo Salin Wallenius? Is it an Alphonse Frey? I mean, like, who is it going to be? Because they're going to need that secondary group to really elevate them in a gold medal contender status. But you also mentioned a Czech player in your list, and I think Czechs are sneaky, more than sneaky good this year. They've got some, but Adam Banak, what I mean, now there's a Brantford Bulldog that's going to be there. Playing on one of the best teams in all of the best team in junior hockey. Let's face it, just in terms of the loadedness of it. I mean, what are we thinking about him? He's always seemed to be such a focal point of a Czech team.
Yeah, and he always thrives when he's playing internationally. I mean, there hasn't been too many times in this kid's career where he wasn't popping off, right? Like, even going to the USHL last year, like, I know he didn't score at the rate you wanted him to, like finishing it off, but he still had 40 plus assists last year for Youngstown, as a rookie coming into that league, right? Like, that's not an easy league to score in. And then, U18, he was 2 points a game. Holinka, he goes out and breaks records all the time every time he goes to the Holinka. So I'm expecting him to be a major piece of that offense, right? And that's That's a team that's going to need him. He's another one that we were talking about who's he's a bit of a dog out there too, right? Like he has that
Yeah.
dogged determination despite not being the biggest player. And then now you got him, hanging out with a guy like Vaclav Nestrasil, right? Who's got that size, who's got the skill, working together potentially on a line. They're going to need those guys to really, really be big time players for them if they're going Adam Novotny too, right? So they have some big players that can really drive the bus for them.
Yeah.
And then, and then we're going to see, can the goaltending stand up? The defense is pretty good too with Jurasek and Sinicha. Like they have some players, these Czechs, like they're another one that you can't discount, right? It's can they get the stops? Are they going to get the stops? Is I think what's going to determine their fate.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be interesting because I mean, hey, they bounced Canada in consecutive years. Now they're in the same bracket, so they can't meet in the quarterfinals this year. So that's good news
Canada.
for Canada. But yeah, exactly. But yeah, there are key differences to that team. But it's also you're getting Adam Manaka, you're older, Radim Murka, you're older, Adam Novotny, you're older. You're getting all these players at various stages where they should be better. Goaltending is going to be a real question, especially no Malota. They're out. Michael Harabel was their guy for the last few years. So now you're in a different thing. But there were a couple of guys that end up on. We had two lists. We kind of had the most exciting guys, but then we also had the guys with something to prove here, Cam. Guys with something to prove at the World Juniors, and the number one guy on the list is the guy that we've all been talking about all year. This is the showcase. This is your time. Gavin McKenna, step on up. This is your time to shine. We saw what he did in the pre-tournament game. 2 assists, looking good, looking a little bit more like himself. But that this is a moment for him, Cam, that he's been salivating over, that he had a couple of extra weeks off at Penn State where he was able to hear the noise a little bit more, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you saw all of the chatter, in his interviews saying, yeah, oh yeah, it fuels me. I'm hearing what people are saying. Oh yeah. And we knew that he would be.
Of course.
Do we think that this is his step out of the shadow, step out of the, right back into the limelight and deliver a big moment? I mean, it feels like that's what it's going to take for him to get back on track here.
I guess so. Like I keep struggling with this because I'm with you. I saw him live a couple times there at Michigan State, and the effort and the body language, they weren't great, but he was still the best player for PSU there both nights. He creates in the moment. It's almost like we've forgotten what this player is, right? So when he was a double underager at the U18s, or maybe it wasn't a double, but he was an underager at the U18s, and he was so good, and he put up so many points, but he wasn't a play driver all the time, right? That wasn't his role. That was more Porter Martone on that line, right? When he was at the Halinka, he was good, but it was Matty Schaefer who really popped and really stood out, right? But he just gets his moments and he makes the best of them. And even in Medicine Hat, right? He would cheat a little bit for offense. He would wait for his moment and he'd attack. And that's just the type of player that he is. And so a lot of people are like, oh, it wasn't that great. It's like, well, he had 2 primaries and he was the best offensive player and clearly, had the best vision and handles out there on a sheet with a lot of really impressive guys. So it's like, does he really need to have that big moment to re-solidify himself in those lottery teams' minds as the guy? Maybe they're looking for that on the big stage, but it's like, I think if he just goes out there and he plays his game, and he does, and he hustles, and he does a little bit of that extra stuff that you need to win a gold medal, I think, and he gets himself 12, 13 points? In my estimation, as long as he's pointing up against the good teams, I'm going to be like, once again, he hasn't moved out of number 1 for me at all. And I think that that's just going to hold him there. He goes out and he puts up, 5 assists in 7 games and he's quiet against Sweden and he's quiet against the Americans and the body language is in there. Now it's like, you're running out of excuses at this point on this stage, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to point up. I think he's going to be good. And I think it's just going to be like, yeah, remember, this is the type of player he is. And when he is 20 pounds heavier in the NHL at 25, that's when he's going to be his most dangerous. And you're not going to pay him to play defense. That's not what he's going to do for you.
Right. Yeah. And I think for him, there's just a lot. To me, I think quite the externalist, because I'm with you. I haven't moved him off of number one either yet. I don't feel like I've seen anything from anyone else that suggests like, and the dirty secret of that is like, I'm not in love with this draft class, like there's not a lot there that's really starting to get me super excited about what we have this season. And I feel like that, and sometimes I wonder, am I just like getting older and like more jaded by
Jaded.
this
Yeah.
job or what? Like, 'cause it's just kind of like,
Yeah.
but I mean, there have been years where you're super excited about it. And it's been hard to be that way. Although I will say this year's D class is really starting to get the blood pumping a lot more.
Mhm.
It's just, do we
Mhm.
have one that I would say is absolutely the number one overall pick this year? That's the bigger question. But yeah, for me, I think, I just want to see Gavin McKenna get back to see what he looks like alongside elite talent.
Yeah.
Um, I also want to give him credit too, because he's getting all these questions, but I think he's handling it pretty well. He talked about
Mhm.
like, yeah, I could have stayed in the WHL and put up a million points, and but what is that going to prove? Basically, he's like, I wanted to challenge myself, and I'm being challenged, which is, I think,
Yeah.
something we have said on this podcast before, that he is being
He
challenged.
listens.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, that intonation sounded familiar to me. But anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, I give him a ton of credit for that too. But I think now he's coming into this with a year of experience, which I think is really important. A year of,
Mhm.
really disappointment from last year. And those guys are coming in with a chip on their shoulders. A guy who should have a real chip on his shoulder here at this camp and at this tournament is Zane Parekh. And
Yeah.
that's another guy I have on this list. Didn't make the team last year. Was hoping to be part of the Calgary Flames right now, but is not, because they sent him here. This does, and it's about something to prove. It's not about, I think Zane Parekh is a heck of a hockey player. I don't think that's what needs to be proven. I think what he needs is he needs a moment again in his career where he is a significant contributor, as he had been for a Memorial Cup team, for his junior club over the years in Saginaw. But now, hey, there's something. I got people on Hockey Canada that I got to prove it to. I got people in Calgary that I got to prove it to. And I think most importantly, he's also got to prove it to himself a little bit, because it just feels like the Zane Parekh that was such a dominant junior defenseman feels a little far away right now, just because of, hey, he had to kind of, and it's not like he played poorly. He just, the adjustment to the NHL is difficult. And Calgary, I think, made the right call by sending him here. What do you think is I ask you this one, Cam, this way, and you can answer it, or, just opine otherwise, but like, what is a successful tournament for Zane Parekh? Is it be like, that's the thing, is like, is it pointing it up? Is it being, an integral part of a power play? Is it winning gold? Like, I mean, like, what are the things that we have to see out of Zane Parekh in this, so that when he does go back to Calgary, he can go back with a little bit more confidence?
Yeah, yes, yes, and yes. I think. I think he needs to point. I think he needs to point up. I think he needs to be an integral part of that top power play unit, and I think he needs to come back with gold. Now, he doesn't need to come back with gold for it to be a successful tournament, because it's a team game and things happen, and individuals can still have success without winning a championship, and we've seen that time after time. But I agree with a lot of things you're saying there. Is that he does have things to prove, and you nailed them, right. He's proving it to Hockey Canada. They made a mistake last year not bringing him. That Calgary fans that are seeing him play 6 to 12 minutes a night, and not being able to put up points in the NHL at this age, at 19, big whoop. It's not a great team, and it's been a tough spot for him. That he is still a blue chip prospect that should, be something that they're really looking forward to when he hits his prime, and that team starts to come up. He wasn't great last night. He was fine. He wasn't dynamic, I wouldn't say, and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for him to be your number one power play offensive defenseman, the guy that is going to set the table for everybody else and create those mismatches and open up lanes and allow a Michael Misa and a Gavin McKenna and a Porter Martone to do their jobs. You need that guy at the blue line. And, they got a couple other guys on this team who can play power play, excuse me, but he is by far the most talented one available. And so he just needs to play his game. And I know that there's been noise over the years that he's not, someone's getting a chance against when Zane Parek's on the ice. We just don't know which team. It's like, don't worry about being the staunch defensive guy, right? Let Ethan McKenzie be that guy. Let these other players, Ben Danford, play the sturdy roles, and you do your job and you create plays. And I think that once he starts to feel that and has that confidence in him, that's when his game really pops. And we've seen it in Saginaw forever. And I think that he can carry that back to Calgary after this, and that'll go a long way and a little shot in the arm for him when he moves back to the NHL too.
Yeah, that's a great point, Cam. I think it's all about getting your swagger back right now.
Yeah.
Get that swagger back, because when you have it, you are really tough to play against, because you're going to be dancing around guys. You're going to be moving pucks. You're going to be making plays. If he gets that back, I think that's big. You also mentioned Anton Frundell as a guy, earlier, that kind of fits into both categories. Why do you think he fits into this one? Because I tend to agree with you. Like, I mean, he's having a decent year. Like, he's scoring goals and different things. But it's like, it does feel like there's always, like, especially last year when he put on a Sweden jersey, he didn't make the junior team last year. He didn't have a good U18s. He didn't really have a lot of high performances. So now I do feel like this is kind of an opportunity for redemption for Anton Frundell with the 3 crowns on his jersey.
Yeah, well, he's often injured for these international tournaments. I believe he was injured last year for the tournament, which is why he didn't make that team, right? Where Victor Eklund did make it. Like you said, the U18s, airlifted in, right? Tough spot for him to be in, especially that first game. Really didn't have it, but it's like, he just got off a 20-hour flight or whatever. But he wasn't great throughout that tournament. And then at the same time, it's like, yes, he has 10 goals, 15 points in 25 games for Djurgården right now, which is awesome production. But you see the role starting to diminish. Early on in the year, he was, shot out of a rocket. And now he's, there's a couple games there where he's seen less than 10 minutes a night, less than 8 minutes a night. He's averaging, 10 or 12. And the role is starting to go down. They're not utilizing him as, one of their top pieces. And I know Chicago fans are being like, what's going on here? And then, that last night's game, fine. Like I said, fine, but not a number 3 overall pick that you're looking for a dominant performance. So I don't think that he has to. He's still only 18. He can be back there next year too. But I don't think he has to be the tournament MVP. But I think he needs to show once again that it's like, hey, I'm a horse down the middle who has the heaviest shot at this event. And I'm going to make good on it a few times here in big moments. And I think he's got it in him too. I imagine he's going to have his moment or two at this event, and I think it's going to go well for him. And it's going to, again, hopefully get some swagger as he goes back to the SHL and finishes off the season there.
And quite frankly, Sweden needs them. They need everybody going. They need everybody going, because if I believe that they have on paper the second best team here.
Yep.
And that to me is, and that's that, how many times have they lost the big game at this tournament? And they've got to find a way. They have got to find a way. And guys like him have to do it. Now, here's another one for you. This was my entry, one of my entries to the list. And it's James Higgins, which seems like weird, right? Like, he's going to be Team USA's #1 center for the second straight year. But let's go back to last season. This was around the time where people were starting to cast doubt on James Higgins as a top player. Unfortunately, this season has not, until more recently, he has picked it up a bit. I was expecting Hobie Baker candidate season. Like, is he going to be one of the best players in college hockey? Is he going to dominate? Is he going to prove it to everybody? And while he has played well, 18 points in 16 games, 10 goals, almost to his goal total from last season, I still think we haven't seen the best of James Higgins. And now, we talk about hey, is Max Plant really going to take over this team? Is that, and in that instance, if James Higgins suddenly becomes a backseat guy to other players, then, his draft day fall will be, at least for now, seemingly validated. And I think that's a tough place for James Higgins to be. He's another guy. Get the swagger back. When he has been a leading player for USA, that's, we saw it at the summer showcase where it looked like he was playing with a chip on his shoulder. He was playing motivated hockey. We saw it in the gold medal game last year where I thought he played his best game at the World Juniors. If he brings that, that's a great thing. And I just think that we haven't seen that James Higgins enough, and now is the time to show it. And so I think there's a lot for him to prove going back to last year's draft. I think there's a lot for him to prove going back to, being the guy that was between Perreault and Leonard. He's got to, do it on his own again, which he did do at the under 18 level, falling just shy of gold. And the guys on this roster, many of the guys on this roster are the guys that took it away from him that year. So I think there's some revenge on the mind. And I want to see that James Higgins. I want to see that fire in James Higgins, because when he's playing at his most competitive, it's exciting to watch, Cam.
Yeah, without a doubt. He's such an even keel kid. He's
right.
He's very well spoken and thoughtful, and on the ice he doesn't play with a lot of spark too often. But you're right, we haven't seen dominant James Higgins since Helsinki, since the U18s, the year before his draft, right? Like that was at the end in May there of 24, whatever it was. He was so good. He was so good. And yeah, they lost in the gold medal game, and it's some circumstances there too. But a lot of the players that were on that American team, you're right, are on this team now looking for redemption. And a lot of the Canadians were on the other side who did take home gold. We mentioned it before, like this should be his team up front. And that's what I'm looking for too. Like last year wasn't his team. It was Ryan Leonard's team. It was Gabe Perreault's team. This year it should be his team. And that's where I think you're right. He has something to prove because, point of game player in the NCAA last year on Boston College in a juicy spot. As a draft eligible, not an easy place to put up points, put a point a game. Now, he doesn't have his running mates there, but no excuses. Now you're a draft +1, you're a top 10 pick. You're still only a point a game. So we're not seeing that elevation year over year. So I agree with you. This is a great opportunity for him to take control, seize the opportunity, put up some good points, be a leader, have that fire. And then again, take that confidence right back to BC, to Boston College there, and run it back so that he can step out of college next year and into the pro game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited to see it. I want to touch on two draft eligibles very quickly in this prove it zone. And it's two guys that I think are going to play pretty significant roles on their teams and actually have a real opportunity to increase their draft stock as a result. And that's Adam Novotny for Czechia and Viggo Bjork for Sweden. I know the Swedish coaching staff has a lot of faith in Viggo. They have a lot of faith in his ability to play. He's going to be on one of their power play units. He's going to be put in positions to create offense. He's a great playmaker. He's just a little bit small. That's the way it goes. Yeah, I am too. I get it. So, but I think like he's going to be put in a position to succeed. And then meanwhile, Novotny, who's played in this event before, who is an absolute horse of a human. I mean, that is a thick child. Like he's not a child. He's a man. He's a man, and he is going to be. And the other thing that I think is really important for Novotny, he had come in. He was playing pro hockey last year, getting his head kicked in pro hockey. Yep. This year, he's playing with Peterborough in the OHL, pointing up, scoring goals. He looks great. And so now you're getting him at his offensive peak. And so I think that those are two guys that we could be having deeper conversations about coming out of this tournament as, top 15 locks. Like they're in that range in a lot of different lists. But have a day at the World Juniors and all of a sudden you're like, whoa. These guys showed up in the biggest moments, and we can, in these intense games, for teams that aren't always going to be the favorites. And, if they can show up in those games where they're playing against the top teams, that's going to go a long way for both of them, don't you think?
Oh, so real quick on Viggo, love me some Viggo Bjork. And like you said, the coaching staff there, the team around him, whenever you talk to players, I mean, I was over in Sweden earlier this year and I was talking to some of the guys there in your gardens and they were just like enamored with this kid. Like, Marcus Kruger, longtime NHLer, cup winner, he was saying, he's like, I heard this kid was good. But then you see him on the ice and the intelligence. Everybody always just talks about his intelligence. He's the smartest player on the ice. And that's coming from longtime NHLers. That's coming from Anton Frondell and Victor Eklund and all these guys, these high-rated players. They're in awe of his way he processes the game. And we're going to see that. Yes, he is a little bit small, but he's a dog too. He wants that puck. He's not afraid to get to the inside. I think he's gonna turn some heads at this event, and I'm absolutely rooting for this kid because I think he has all the skill in the world. He's just gonna have to keep climbing uphill because of the tape measure. Adam Novotny, though, you're right. Like that kid, I talked to him last year before the World Juniors. He played a bit part. He was he only got a point or two in 7 games there for them, but I sat down with him and chatted with him, and like another good kid. And yeah, what he's doing in Peterborough right now, he's a man out there for sure. And so I'm expecting, we like him a lot. We've got him top 15 on our list already, and like he could be climbing ever more too, because he has power forward with skill written all over him. And yeah, another one that I think that he's, him with Manak and Nestor Seal, and then those guys, it's going to be those checks. They're going to have, they've been climbing up a little bit year over year here. They are going to be a tough out, and Novotny's going to play a big role in that too. And like, it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me if he pushed into the top 10 conversation with his size and his skill. He's a little bit older for this draft class, but he's a good player for sure.
He really is. And you look at, the Czech team that he has around him. I mean, there's, a good chunk of the team is drafted. That hadn't been the case in a few years ago where most of the players were drafted. But you think about guys like, Adam Juracek, Radim Murtka on the blue line, Banak, as you mentioned, Chihar, Jesho, like all the Nestor still. Like this is going to be a really good team. And so I think they have a chance. But there's one more player on the prove it list, and that's the guy that's undrafted on Canada, Ethan McKenzie. Yeah, I mean, sorry. Look at me. I can't even cough his name out at this point. But you look at, there's always guys that have come into it undrafted. He's an 06 born. He's gone through it, not picked. He's been gone through injuries. Twice. He's, average size, but 31 points already this season in 30 games with the Edmonton Oil Kings. And he came into camp looking like a no doubter to make it, from being an undrafted guy with all these great players, all these first round picks. I mean, I think now, he'll be drafted, like somebody's gonna be like, oh, yep, sorry, we got it. We're on it. But beyond that, I mean, how much can he raise his stock with a big World Juniors? I mean, are we talking about a guy that's going on day one?
I mean, gosh, it wouldn't as a double, right? Because he didn't get drafted in 24 as like the youngest kid in the draft, right? He was
really
super
late.
super
Yes.
Yep. Right, September birthday. I think in the 2024 guide we said that this is like a potential breakout candidate for 24-25, and breakout he did. Right, he had a great year last year, 32 points. We had him ranked in I think we had him at like 125, 130, something like that. And again, we called him. We're like, his offensive game and his transition growth was like, it was coming up, and we projected him to be kind of like a 5th, 6th, 7th round steal. One of these guys and he would have been if someone would have taken him in the 7th. And now all of a sudden you look at him, you'd be like, holy smokes, what a great pick. Even the 4th, this would be looking like an excellent pick. Goes undrafted again. Right now he's a 19-year-old. He's going, and like you see him last night, you see him playing there in the West. He's such a dog. Like on the wall, like he is so difficult to get off the wall against. Net front, he's clean structurally, and then again that transition play, like he knows how to move the puck with his feet. He knows how to snap a good pass. He has pretty good vision. Like you said, he's only 6 foot, 100 and whatever, 85 pounds, 80 pounds, but he just has that ability to really he stirs the drink. He plays a lot of different ways straight up. And like, could he get into the first round? I mean, maybe. I'd feel a lot safer saying that he's going to be an early day 2 kid in the 2nd or 3rd round. But a big tournament here, he absolutely, all it takes is one team, right? And another one that you're just rooting for. I love a story like this. A kid like that who's passed through twice. Now he's got this golden opportunity. Like he was saying, he's like, I had no idea that I was even in the mix for this team. He thought when the GM called him in that he was getting traded, not that he was getting sent to camp, to Team Canada's camp. Right now he's going to be on the team, and so yeah, I'm rooting for him. I hope he does have a big tournament, and I think he is going to play a significant role for the Canadians.
Yeah, and it's always interesting to see those guys, and you give credit to the scouting staff, and Canada has much more resources in terms of like full-time resources and player evaluation for the World Junior team. I mean, they've always had significant ones, but now they've got, like Misha Donskov has been much more involved in the national team process. And, they've
Yeah.
got a number of different player, or individuals that are in that. And so you get a guy like him who slipped through the cracks, and now you give him this opportunity, and it's like, hey, you're not just on the team, you're going to be a big part of it. I think that's really, really impressive for him, and very exciting in the end. All right, Cam, that's going to do it for that part of the show. Like I said, next week we are going to be talking about our, we've got our other segments coming up here in a second, but we're also got next week predictions, who's winning gold, who's winning bronze, who's winning silver,
Bets,
who's losing gold,
wagers.
that kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. Are we gonna challenge each other with some friendly bets?
Right?
Are we going to make the books weep as they change lines after whatever it is we say on this show? But
Exactly.
I think that there's a lot to get to, so we're going to get really into the nitty-gritty of the tournament. But we wanted to focus today more on the prospects, and we're going to continue that in our Beyond Belief segment. And this is going much more to the 2026 NHL draft, because there is a number of high-level NHL draft prospects that are going to be playing in this tournament that are probably going to have a significant impact on their draft stock. It's a great year to do this, doing what we do, going to the tournament and seeing these players up close and personal. So, Cam, we go into Beyond Belief, and this, of course, is when we give each other a statement, and the other decides whether it's Beyond Belief. And as we did last week, I allow you, sir, to lead us off here as we go forward in this Beyond Belief segment.
Wonderful. Okay, let's start it off here. Albert Smits will depart from the World Juniors as the number 1 defensive prospect in this 2026 class. Believable?
It's believable for me. I think he's right now. I look at Verhoff, Chase Reed, Albert Smits, a number of the guys in that tier. Carls, who there's a number of defensemen that I think are kind of clumped together. Now, let's say Keaton Verhoff doesn't make Team Canada and goes home, or he doesn't play for Team Canada. That gives these other guys that runway to try and supplant him as the consensus. And I don't think the consensus really exists as much anymore anywhere in this draft for that. But I do think that there is, for me, I think that Albert Smits is very much in the camp where he could potentially be the number 1 defense prospect here. I think the points and everything else are one thing, but it's the amount of minutes he's playing like a man all the time, just really coming kind of out of nowhere. It feels like he was starting this last year. We're starting to see this rise. We see him at the under 18 Worlds. He starts the year in U20, and they're like, oh, we got to get him on the senior team now. And then he goes, he is trending in a significant way. So it's believable, but there's a lot of competition in this. And just your thoughts before we move on from him.
I think it's beyond belief. I mean, it's anything's possible.
So
it certainly is believable, but I think it's beyond belief simply because I think there are going to be some other D at this tournament that are going to be in higher leverage spots. Like, he's going to make an impression, no doubt about it. But I think some guys on some bigger brand name teams are going to also make significant impressions that will continue to keep him, in that maybe that secondary zone of defensemen.
Okay. Well, maybe this guy, maybe my Beyond Belief statement for you is going to shake these trees a little bit, because we're staying on this same topic. Chase Reed, currently on the roster for Team USA, very much expected to make it. Chase Reed leaves the World Juniors as the number 1 defense prospect. Soo Greyhound's defenseman. Now, I probably know where you're going with this one, because I've seen what's happening over at Elite Prospects. But let's go. What do you got? Is he going to leave this tournament as the number 1 defense prospect for the 2026 NHL draft?
Not believable. It's unbelievable. Not buying it. Beyond belief. Beyond belief. I threw a curveball at you there for sure. And here's why. I like Chase Reed. I think there's a world where he absolutely is the first defenseman drafted off the board, but it won't be because of the World Juniors. It'll be because of his club play, because he's not Cole Hudson. He's not Cole Hudson, so he's not going to get all the juicy offensive minutes. I mean, hell, Hudson had twice as many points as Z Bouillon did at the World Juniors last year, right? Like, now it's Z Bouillon playing behind him now for offensive minutes. So no, I don't think we're going to see Chase Reed get to unleash the full arsenal of his skills to really take that big step in the public's mind and the NHL team's minds that this is the number one rated prospect in this draft. But with the caveat, he can go back to the O and he can prove it there throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, he plays so many minutes for the Sioux Greyhounds. At one point, and he may still, he probably still is the most utilized defenseman in the OHL in terms of minutes played per game. Just a really, really impressive thing. I have a feeling he's, while he is not going to get the prime Cole Hudson minutes, I think he's going to be playing a pretty substantial role. I'm excited to see whether or not, how he's got to be their number 2 power play guy. I think that's a big reason that that's why you should invite him. But there's a lot there. So really excited to see what happens with him. But I turn it back over to you.
Okay, I have a completely unique question here. I'm going to throw a curveball at you.
No
Carson
way.
Karls leaves the World Juniors as the number 1 defense prospect for 2026. What do you think?
Yeah, and it is the holiday season. I do wish it was pronounced Carols, but it is Karls.
Yeah,
we both were on the Carols train for a long time, and I love a good Carol. I love a good Carol this time of year. But to me, it's beyond belief for a lot of the reasons that we talked about. It's all about opportunity. He's going to be a little bit buried. But what I will say is that he is going to significantly help his draft stock here, because I do think that when he is on the ice, he is going to be a positive impact player for Canada. So I do think that that's going to help him. Ascending to number 1 is a different thing. I think that Karls is a player that does so many things well, but maybe nothing spectacularly, right? Like, am I wrong in that assessment? Like, where it's like, and you need those well-rounded defensemen. Those tend not to be the guys that go number 1, but at the same time, or are the top defensemen selected. I think there are other players that maybe have a higher offensive ceiling, but this is a really good player, and he's going to play a lot. And I think Canada brings him in, and if he makes it over Keaton Verhoff, now all of a sudden you're talking about some of those opportunities. So, we'll see if Sam Dickinson comes. How much does that diminish the opportunities that Carson Karls gets to get on the ice and all those things? But what a player. What a player, Cam. Oof. Really impressive young man.
Yeah, give it to me here. I'm going to say, assuming Sam Dickinson does not come, that this is believable, that Karls can. Ooh. That he is the brand name team guy, that he is going to start as that 7D, and he's going to play so well and so solid that they are going to be forced. Oop, Cameron Reed, now you're jumped over. Cash, maybe they trust him more than Kayshawn too. I think that he could play his way up this lineup, and by the time we get to the middle rounds, everybody's talking about Carson Karls. And you're right that he doesn't have that one dynamic feature like Keaton Verhoff's shot, right? His goal scoring ability, or Cash's physical ability, or a Matty Schaefer skating, something like that. He doesn't have that, but he's not just good at everything, he's very good at everything. Like he kind of gets known as a defensive defenseman, like that his defense is really, really strong, and it is positionally, and he's sturdy, and he knows where to be, and he knows how to D up and gap up, but he also knows how to jump into the play. He also knows how to finish things off and snap a good pass and move the puck around in the offensive zone and PG there in the West. I think that we already see it. We see it right now. He's a better fit than Keaton Verhoff on this team right now. Now, we can have the argument, he's got better feet than Verhoff too. We could have the argument about who has the better potential in the NHL, and that you might get me arguing Keaton Verhoff, because I think he does have massive potential. But I do think that there's a world where this kid does so well that are like, that's going to be the first D off the board. Now, I'm not taking him 1, but you take him 3. I don't think that's out of the question.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point, is that we're not saying they're going to be the number 1 prospect in the draft. No. And I think, you look at the guys like, McKenna, Stenberg, other forwards that, Tynan Lawrence, other forwards that are going to potentially be that. But it's like, all of a sudden, when I look at these defensemen, I feel like there's a clump of them that are going to end up in the same draft tier. And I think, these are 3 guys that very conceivably will be in that tier, along with Keaton Verhoff. And if that's the case, then that, there's still an opportunity for them. So hard to do. All right, we got one more on the draft. We teased it a little bit earlier. I know you love the player. I do too. Viggo Bjork will leave the World Juniors as a top 10 lock for this year's draft. Believable or beyond belief?
I'm going to say it's beyond belief. I don't think he's going top 10. I don't think he's going to get into that zone simply because of his stature. Now, he's a
Right.
center in a center light draft class, but we're starting to see some guys kind of elevate in there. Caleb Maholtra's got a lot of helium.
Yep.
Sheloff is a slam dunk first rounder too, and he could push into that top 15. I think Bjork's going to find himself, depends on who's picking where, but maybe that 14 to 20 range is probably more realistic for him. And that's with a good World Junior and going back to Djurgården and doing what he's been doing, which is, playing quite well as draft eligible, playing the SHL. And even when he gets a cup of coffee, gets sent down and he goes and plays 20 minutes and then he comes right back up. He's looking good. But no, I don't think he's going to be able to push himself into that top 10. Now, when we look back in hindsight, I think there's a chance that he should have. But again, it's like it's an uphill battle when you're that size. It's going to always be an uphill battle for him. But I do think he's not going to quite push into that single digit range.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that one too. And I think for me with Vigo, it's also the skating and other things. Like, is it gonna be at a level that's gonna allow teams to kind of overlook some of the different things that they may be concerned about? But I mean, you look at the hockey sense,
Like
you
a
look at the
Marco
way
Rossi.
yes, exactly. Like the
Yeah.
pace of
Yeah.
play, different things of that, like the way he processes the game is fast, which is important. But he's not necessarily going to, burn you, but how much can he put some of these top teams on their back foot with his skill? How much can he put these top teams, how aggressive he's being? Cause he is fearless. Like that's one thing I will say, like he doesn't shy away from the hard stuff. He's not going to be a physical specimen. He's not going to be, initiating contact a ton, but he's not afraid to go to the hard areas to create offense. And I think that's what you have to do at the World Juniors. And if you have a player like him, maybe as a secondary piece and is consistent secondary scoring, it does give you a better chance to win. And I think it does help his draft stock ultimately to get into that top 15 range. I think the size is always going to be something that kind of keeps him outside of that looking in. But I can't wait to watch him. We've said we say he's a guy to prove. I think he's a guy that's exciting. There's all sorts of different things that we'll have there. Mm-hmm. All right. Cam, here's another one for you. We've said it before. I think the two best teams on paper, though I do think the USA is going to continue to, ascend and be a challenging team for anybody that plays them. But on paper, Canada and Sweden, to me, are the top two teams. So we're going to you have to pick one. And the you have to pick one, I think is, some people might say, obviously it's one. Maybe it's, I don't think it's as obvious, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. You've got to choose one power play, one team's power play to win you this in this tournament. Are you going with Canada's and their personnel or Sweden's and their personnel? And one thing that I'll say, in the World Juniors, the team with the best power play has almost always won the tournament in the last, I think, like 5 or 6 years. So something to know. Sense. Best power play usually leads to gold. So that's why I'm asking, which of Canada or Sweden, whose power play you taking?
So Canadian, sitting over here, working for a very Swedish company. I don't know if everybody knows that.
Yeah, tread lightly. Tread lightly.
Yeah, they know they can't censor me. I think if ASP was on this team, if Axel Sandin Palika was on this team still, if he was 19, that might be enough for me to be like, these Swedes, but they're lacking that guy on the blue line, right? Whereas Canada has the horses up front, right? The elite talent. They've got a guy they can put in the bumper too, like they all over that sheet. And then they've got Zane Parekh. Then they've got that truly elite puck-moving defenseman on the blue line, where Sweden is going to have to fiddle around with Alphonse Frez or Selene Wallinius or Sachin Bobedian. Like they don't have the guy. They got some smooth skaters. They got some guys who can move the puck around a little bit, but they don't have the guy. And I think that's the big difference. Canada doesn't have Anton Frundell. They don't have that goal scorer. Like his shot is better than anybody else's. But then we can come over here and be like, Sweden doesn't have a Gavin McKenna. Right. So it's pick your poison but you're right. Those should be the top two. And it's not surprising that those who have the best power play end up winning the event because it's IHF rules. The hands go up quicker and easier. You can't get away with as much. And if you can capitalize on the power play, especially in big moments, it's really deflating for the other team. So yeah, I do. I'll take Canada, but they still got to execute, right? And a lot of these guys on Sweden have played together for a lot of years. and they
And
have a lot of familiarity, and that's going to play a big
yeah.
role for them. And Canada doesn't have that necessarily.
And that, my friend, is exactly why I'm going with Sweden's power play on this. And it is because, we're on it. Like,
We're
here's the thing
feeling it.
about Sweden. Like, as you mentioned, it's not just like they play multiple U20 events over the course of the year. They keep their units together. They keep them
Yeah,
trying, like, they're not testing things out. They know what they want to
yeah.
do. They know their roles, and they do that. They have really good guys that can be net front guys. Jack Berglund. They have guys like Anton Frundell, who are excellent triggermen. Sasha Boumedian has a great shot from the point. There's a lot of different weapons that they have. Ivar Stenberg coming downhill. I know you said they don't have a
Oof.
Gavin McKenna, but I like Ivar Stenberg coming downhill and making plays that way. You have facilitators like a Vigo Bjork. So I think if you're looking at two total units, I agree completely. They do not have the quarterback capabilities that Canada does in their group. I just think that with their forward weapons and the familiarity factor, give me Sweden's power play. I think it's going to be really interesting to watch that against Team USA on New Year's Eve. That's going to be a big test for them.
It's going to be a good game.
But I like, and here's the thing. I think one of these two teams is going to have the best power play. I think USA is going to be up there too because they have Cole Hudson, who is the best of the group, in my opinion,
Yeah,
of any of the defensemen in this tournament in terms of running a power play.
yeah.
But man, what an like the skill level of these teams, and again, USA I think is going to have a very strong power play. You got Cole Eiserman, you got all these different weapons, but if we're looking at those two, give me Sweden, but only by a little bit. And I really do hope that whether it's in the semifinals, the gold medal game, whatever, that we do get to see those two units go head to head. Obviously, not at the same time, but dueling power plays would be fun.
Maybe.
That'd be fun. Just play power play hockey for the whole game. I'd
Yeah.
be all right with that. All right. Well, Cam, we're like I said, we're gonna be back next week, earlier than normal. You guys are gonna
Early.
get a bonus pod in your feed. And then we'll have more details about how you're going to be able to follow the podcast over the course of the World Juniors. There'll be a little bit of a gap. We'll kind of let the tournament go. And then on quarterfinal day, that's about when you'll be able to hear from us again. But we will continue to go through this tournament week by week, line by line. And we are going to have a ton of fun next week talking about it. But Cam, I know it's also, hey, it's Christmas in so many different ways at Elite Prospects. What do you got cooking up for us this fine holiday season?
Yeah, as you mentioned, drop the most exciting. I'm going to have some bold predictions coming out early next week too. We got the Meet the Team series, which is always like must read stuff. Like get a breakdown of exactly who's doing what on each team, especially some of these lesser known teams too. So you want to check that out. Yeah, we've got. I'll have another scouts poll coming out just at the end of this. We've got a pretty big announcement that we've added someone to the team too that should be coming out maybe later this week. So you can keep your eyes and ears open for that too. So a lot of exciting things going on at EP.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're obviously really excited here at FloHockey. We're going to have tons of World Junior coverage. As I mentioned, we're going to actually have a presence at the World Juniors. You'll be able to see, we're going to have more details. You'll be able to find it at FloHockey.tv, but we will have a booth there at the Fan Fest, which is going to be really fun. And there's going to be a really exciting activation that's part of that hopefully you guys will get a chance to participate in. My only hint to you on that so far is it has something to do with flow, and not FLO, but maybe FLOW. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get closer. But also, if you didn't know, FloHockey 24/7 is now live on the Amazon Prime Live and also Fubo Sports. You can also get us on Bell 5 in Canada as well. So we are available. That is a free over, on smart TVs. Get the apps with those. You'll be able to watch a lot live on there. There's going to be a number of live games, including some of our AHL offerings. So watch that. You can also watch games on demand. You can watch this podcast on that network as well. So FloHockey 24/7. It is also available on YouTube as well. So you can keep an eye on that. But we will have tons and tons and tons of World Junior coverage, lineups, how to watch, everything you need to know about the tournament on FloHockey.tv. So make sure you get there. Want to send a huge thanks to Amanda for producing today's show. Want to thank all of you guys for listening and for bearing with my my under the weatherness and my my stops and starts and coughs and sniffles and everything else. Hopefully we'll be better by the World Juniors. Big thanks to Cam. Cam, I mean, this dude, I am so excited for this tournament. Obviously, it's on U.S. soil. It's always a little fun, but man, I think we got a lot of good things cooking, and I really can't wait to preview the whole thing next week.
It's gonna be good, and then we get to hang out. Then we get dinners.
Yeah,
we get drinks.
Yeah,
we get to
dinners.
hang out. It's gonna be a blast.
Maybe Stephen Ellis gets set on fire again. There's all sorts of different things that can happen.
Who knows?
You never know. You really never know at the World Juniors. Anything can happen, especially when Stephen Ellis is involved. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of Called Up the Prospects podcast. My name is Chris Peters. He is Cam Robinson. We will see you guys next week.